Welcome to Inside College Admission, conversations with admission leaders about matters affecting the college-going process. My name is Peter Van Buskirk, and I'm joined today by Dr. Sharon Alston. Welcome, Sharon. How are you today?
I'm great, Peter. How are you this morning?
Well, not too bad. Learning to deal with physical distancing. It's a concept that's not very common, especially to people who are people, the admission people, right?
Yeah, I know. We missed the handshakes and the hugs, right?
Oh, you got it. You got it. So what is it like for you now to be in early April? You've been overseeing a process for the last several months of making difficult decisions about whom to admit. Now you've sent decision letters out. You're excited about seeing these kids, and they're excited about seeing American University, and all's quiet. How is that working for you right now?
Yeah, it's we're all, I don't want to call this normal. It's new to all of us, but we are adjusting. Just right now on campus, the university is open, but it is temporarily shuttered, which is very different. You know, this is a time of year when we would be seeing upwards of 12,000 people on campus. As of March 16th, all of us who can have been asked to telework. Online instruction began for all of our students on the 18th of March, and ultimately we had all of our students move out of the residence halls as of, I'd say, around the 23rd or so of March, and campus is very quiet as there are no activities that are taking place on campus. So it's a very different experience than anything we've ever witnessed.
We have a ghost town right now.
Yeah, it is. It is very much like a ghost town. In fact, actually even different from times when we've had campus breaks, because there are very few staff on campus as well. I mean, everyone has just gone off to their respective places to do what we need to do to keep the university operating, but we're just not together.
I'm curious about something. How many students would normally be on campus for your current students at any given time?
So AU university-wide has an enrollment of about 13,000 students. About 6,800 of them are undergraduates, and I would say that roughly 2/3 or so of them actually live on campus. So, literally, a few thousand at any given time are going to be on campus. It's a very vibrant, very busy place. And so it's sort of like, this is sort of like taking a running water faucet and suddenly just turning it off. There's no trickle, it's on and then it's off. It's very strange.
I would imagine that spring break had an entirely different feel to it for your faculty this year. Was that a time of very rapid reconfiguring of the curriculum so they could go online?
Yes, because very, very quickly, in fact, during spring break, there were discussions about contingencies. And so it was during that time that the university made the decision that all instruction would be online. We extended our spring break by a couple of days it was supposed to end on March the 16th. We extended it through March the 18th. In order to get everything and gear everything up and running to go totally online. So it was certainly interesting for faculty, but luckily through our Center for Teaching, Learning, and Research, that is a resource that's available to faculty members on campus. And we also have faculty members who are accustomed to teaching on campus. So using those resources, we were able to assist our faculty in getting online with online instruction.
Wow, good stuff, and that's no small feat to accomplish with that many students, and then obviously that many courses and professors, etc. Kind of give me a sense, if you would, what the timeline of the revelations were for you on the enrollment side with regard to the coronavirus. I would imagine, as with most of us, you became aware of something happening in China early in January, but it still probably seemed pretty distant, pretty remote. But incrementally, news came out, revelations emerged, and all of a sudden, what seemed to be something that was on the other side of the world was sweeping across our country as well. Can you give me a sense of what the thought process was like in your office with your colleagues as you began to imagine something different for the enrollment process this spring?
Well, I think that there were a couple of things, right? I mean, I've sort of lost track of the timeline because time just seems to have been suspended in some ways, and it's just, hurtling forward in other respects. I think the earliest inclinations really began with discussions on campus about moving our students who were studying abroad in China out of China.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a very distinct recollection of a late Sunday afternoon conference call in which the university was discussing getting those students out of the country and what that would mean. And then that was followed maybe sometime later by another conference call discussing who else is over there, who else is overseas, and who do we need to bring back home?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we transition them back home and ensure that they can certainly continue their path toward degree? I think sometime in February, we began thinking not only about some of the implications of NACA, but again about COVID-19 and what that would mean for us, but it still felt very distant. And so we still felt that while there might be some enrollment implications, that we could still go about business as usual. I think in early March, there began the discussions about maybe we really can't do business as usual. So how might we adapt any of our regional information sessions? We go out regionally around the country every year at this time to meet with new students and their families.
Mm-hmm.
Then the discussion began, are we going to continue to do these? And the feeling was, yes, if the university is still open and operating, then we're going to be business as usual. It took, I would say, from late February until the middle of March for all of that just to come to an absolute grinding halt. And for us to realize that, no, everything that we would do, we would have to do remotely. We would have to use whatever platforms were available to us to reach out to students. The one area in which we did not deviate was we were determined to get admission packets out to our students. We felt that this information and that this element of normalcy was really important for students who'd waited such a long time, and we still wanted to be able to provide them with that experience. And so while we notified students electronically, we decided that we still wanted to get out the paper as well. And so that did happen, and it happened on time as planned.
Wow. So an awful lot happened during the month of March, I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I can recall a month of March that seemed longer than 2020. You've emerged now with the letters are out, but in the process of evaluating what was going to happen, did you make any changes with regard to enrollment deadlines, enrollment deposits, anything like that?
At this particular, we did not change our notification deadline, so that remains. We carry through with that. We are in the process of looking at what, if any, adjustments we might need to make in our notification deadline. Certainly, we are being very flexible with those students that indicate that they may need a little bit of additional time, but at least at this particular juncture, at this moment, we have not changed our notification deadline, our reply deadline for students. That remains at this point May 1st. And in fact, what's really interesting is that as we look at the rate at which our deposits are coming in, they are coming in at a very, very good pace.
Mm-hmm.
But as we go through the next couple of weeks, we, like everybody, we're watching the news, we're listening to guidance from the various public health officials, and we're listening to our families that reach out to us. And so as we need to, we will certainly make an adjustment if we need to give students a little bit more time.
And I would imagine that there are just a lot of variables at work here for you. I mean, not only is the health crisis impacting your planning, but now the economic situation that's arising out of it, and then not too far beneath the surface are probably growing concerns at home, families wanting to keep maybe kids a little bit closer to home. in light of what's going on. And as an institution that is truly international in your draw, I would imagine that it's kind of hard to imagine what the implications would be for you. Is predicting the yield something that's a little challenging right now?
Yes, it is. I mean, we draw students from all over the country and well over, all over the United States and significantly more than 100 countries. And yes, predicting yield is a challenge for us. And we knew that going into the admission cycle this year because of changes in the NACA guidelines. So COVID-19 has just added another wrinkle to the mix. It is difficult. And so one of the things that we did early on in order to mitigate that was we decided to go with a few more offers of admission as a bit of a cushion. We decided to increase our wait list a bit, again, as an additional cushion. So what's going to be difficult for us is predicting, as you've indicated, what number of students will actually show up in the fall. Another thing that is added to the mix to make this even more confusing is the inability to host students on our campus, right? Students are accustomed to being able to come onto our campuses and see themselves in the picture. I mean, it's important for students at this particular time to be able to see themselves as a part of our university community. Mm-hmm. And they're unable to do that. And to some extent, that kind of behavior is also an indicator of who is likely to submit an enrollment deposit and matriculate. Sure. So these are things that are no longer available to us right now to predict who will actually arrive. What will be interesting is we have used a number of different kinds of platforms to deliver the campus experience to students remotely. And we have seen a number of students take advantage of these kinds of opportunities. So looking at all of that data on the back end will be interesting when we sort of look back at this year to see what the outcomes were and what our projections might have been.
And we'll get into that a little bit more in just a moment. But you mentioned the Department of Justice and NACA. Maybe just take a minute to elaborate on what's happening there and what the possible implications would be.
So we know that the Department of Justice actions basically have resulted in changes in how colleges and universities interact with students even after they've committed to an institution. We know that under these new guidelines that colleges can now continue to recruit students who have committed to other schools after making any kind of a commitment. So yes, it is going to be very difficult for us. I think what's going to be challenging for us is the whole idea of managing our wait lists and understanding what the recruitment cycle will extend well into the summer. There are just a lot of unknowns. There are unknowns for us regarding the impact on our financial aid budgets, as we might anticipate that families may come back to us and negotiate at a rate greater than they have previously. So I think that for the Department of Justice implications, again, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think that we all entered this recruitment cycle understanding that there would be uncertainty in the various ways that colleges would respond to the changes in the guidelines. We knew that anyway. We knew that we wouldn't be able to predict that. And again, now with COVID-19, just more unpredictability.
You touched on something that I think is really important to a lot of folks, and that is the notion of cost and affordability. I would imagine that, as recently as this fall, there are a lot of parents supporting their children and their application to colleges feeling pretty comfortable that they understood what their capacity is to meet the cost. Some felt probably, yeah, we've got it banked, it's going to be okay, or we aren't quite sure where it's all coming from, but there was some degree of certainty, at least in their minds, about what types of financial aid they might be able to receive. Well, frankly, over the last 2 weeks, all of that's just gone up in smoke. Yeah. So how would you advise the family that thought it was coming at this process with relative certainty, 2, 3, 4 months ago, and is now looking at a very different reality and may need some assistance?
Yeah, Peter, I think that this impact of COVID-19's impact has really, really been heartbreaking. there's the loss of life, the loss of health, but the impact on the economy is just, it's devastating. And I don't think that as we entered 2020, just, a few short months ago, none of us would ever have anticipated this. We've actually heard from a number of families who are concerned or anticipating experiencing financial losses, as well as those who have experienced losses as a result of COVID-19. They've either lost jobs or they've lost investments, money that they've saved up to pay for their students' education. So these really are very difficult times for families, and we feel for them, because a lot of these folks have prayed and planned and hoped to help their kids achieve their dreams. And so I would say that we understand this, and that the most important thing that families can do is reach out to us to share their concerns and to ask their questions. We want to be able to provide support as we can, and we want to be able to discuss options that might be available to them. So the most important thing that a family can do at this time is not experience this alone, but reach out to us so that we can help them and support them.
And the reason I ask is that I think that sometimes families find that the financial side of this just is awfully daunting, and they've perhaps worked through all the paperwork initially, sent it in, and now things are different. Well, it's another daunting process to even contemplate opening the file again, and who do we talk to when, et cetera. And there's certainly going to be people who are on it right away, and they'll call you, but there are probably a lot of other folks who, because of their nervousness about how to do this, how to approach an appeal, just put it off until it's almost too late. So is it safe to say that the sooner they can respond, the better?
Yeah, the worst thing that a family can do is put it off. The best thing that they can do is address it immediately. Mm-hmm. Call us, explain what the situation is. In some instances, the proper advice is, let's give this a little time. But, in other situations, it might be, okay, yes, here's what we can do for you right now. So again, the most important thing that the family can do is reach out to the financial aid professionals who are accustomed to dealing with these kinds of issues and who can provide some guidance for them. But don't let it linger.
Good advice. Thank you. And I'd like to go back to the discussion of what would normally be happening with the admitted students right now. A lot of campus activities now shut down. How are you accommodating these kids who really want that up close and personal experience with American University before they make a decision? I would imagine you're living in a virtual world with them right now.
Yes. You heard me mention at the very beginning that during the months of March and April on our campus, we see about 12 to 14,000 visitors. And let me explain these 12 to 14,000 visitors. 12 to 14,000 visitors are just people that are coming to experience our daily tours and information sessions. Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, we have another few thousand that are joining us special campus-based conversion opportunities. So we have a big open house program that's sort of an all hands on deck. Every area, every aspect of the university community comes together to welcome these students and to showcase what it is that we have to offer. Mm-hmm. We offer a series of overnight programs that students can experience what life is like in the residence halls and eat our food in the dining hall. So these are all opportunities where students can not only see what life is going to be like as an AU student and see themselves in the picture, but even interact with other students who might potentially be their classmates. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, we have sessions that are across the country. We visit about 25 cities at this time of year to reach out to students to talk with them about the university. We bring current students with us. We bring other members of the university community with us. So with all of that gone, we've had to look to other means to find a way to provide students with a campus experience. So we've done a few different kinds of things. First of all, we're really, really very fortunate that AU has a mobile app that allows students to see different aspects of campus life. It provides them with an immersive campus experience that they can have right from their telephones.
Mhm.
We also have a YouTube channel, which includes a number of different videos about the university, as well as highlights of events that have taken place on campus. For students who might just be beginning their college admission process, so for rising juniors, we even offer a series of videos that provide students with information about the college admissions process. I think it's called something like What About, or I'll have to get the name of it to you, but
Mhm.
provide these videos so that students can again learn about the admissions process.
Mhm.
We've put up virtual information sessions on our website. We also offer a series of informational webinars that students can use to get information about the university. So again, I mean, we've used different kinds of electronic media and other platforms. And I was having a senior moment. The video series is called What AU Looks For.
Mhm.
So this really provides students with insights as to what we look for in the application process. So, you know, between those kinds of things and social media, webinars, even the one-on-one outreach on the part of our admission staff and the part of our current students to newly admitted students, we're finding ways to make these connections and to try to build community with our newly admitted students.
So it sounds like even though you might be at a distance from those admitted students, there's still a pretty intensive high touch approach to them, so that they're not going to feel like they're having to make decisions from a great distance emotionally.
It's critical, right? Because this is a big decision that student families are making, and they're making a really big investment. So we have to pull out all the stops when it comes to really finding ways to bring that campus experience and to bring the community experience to students. And one of the things that I hope is an outcome of this COVID-19 experience is that I do hope that one day we can return to business as usual.
Mhm.
But I would also hope that business as usual will include a lot of the elements that we've had to now incorporate into our toolkit, that these things now become incorporated, so that we are finding ways to reach students that maybe might not have been able to seek us out in the first place. And so that becomes our new business as usual.
So the crisis has it created an opportunity to sort of thrust the institution into a new paradigm for recruitment and enrollment then.
Absolutely. And we've been doing a lot of these things previously. We've always held webinars, for instance. We've had our mobile tour app for a few years now, but I think that this is an opportunity for us to really, really ramp it up, and even to think about the timing
Hmm.
which we do some of these things. So I think it's forcing us to be even more creative than we have been previously.
Now, is there any conversation about when do we think we want to open the campus again, or is that strictly going to be wait and see with regard to what the health experts are saying?
Well, for right now, we are following the guidance of the District of Columbia and other public health officials. And so this would have us operating in this mode through April the 24th. But
Hmm.
again, I mean, our campus officials are working with public health officials and the DC government as well. Plans are right now that we will be open, and we would expect to be open in the fall. In a face-to-face mode as we have traditionally. But again, like other institutions, we are assessing this.
Well, I'd imagine also your faculty is getting ready to look at a plan B if it's not possible to be open in a face-to-face way. But speaking of the fall, that's the time when you're really pushing hard with the next group of potential applicants. And you alluded earlier to some of the things that you do on campus, off campus, college fairs, open houses, credential review sessions, visits to high schools, things that have been a staple of the admission process, the recruitment process for many years, may be in jeopardy. Are you and your staff beginning to think about the plan B there in terms of what your outreach might look like?
Yes, we have. I mean, and so there are the traditional methods of, what might we do to reach out to students as far as our communications, or electronic communications or paper communications. We will also be looking to use the webinars that we talked about earlier, those webinar platforms, pushing out information again about our Tour AU mobile app, which will allow students to experience the campus virtually. I love the YouTube channel that we have on campus, because this will allow us to post even more video, because the important thing is that you want to be able to you want students to experience the campus, you want them to see the campus, and so video will allow us to do that. We will probably look to be very creative about the ways in which we interview students, and we will be looking at different platforms that will allow us to do that. So again, I think that we're just going to have to rely on, if we cannot travel, we're going to have to rely on those various virtual platforms to connect with students. And I think that one of the nice things about the technology that we have is that it still allows for face-to-face. So we're not necessarily in the same place, but it still provides opportunities for students and for staff to put names and faces together. So it's a different way of connecting, but it's still a connection. And I think that we would still continue to work to really engage students in the very personal way that we've built our recruitment traditions on.
Well, very good. Now, speaking of those students who are in the pipeline for next year, the current juniors, soon to be seniors, one of the stressors for them right now is, I think testing's always been a stressor, but there's added anxiety given the fact that the winter and spring test dates have been canceled, and now we've got kids who are looking at maybe a one-time test experience that is good but not great, and they're looking forward to another opportunity to improve their scores, but they don't know if they'll have that. Are you looking at any accommodation for the kids who may be approaching the admission process with a test profile that is less than they believe is representative of what they can do?
So we're very fortunate that AU has been test optional since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
It was very important to us when we made that decision. We wanted to be able to allow students to put their best foot forward in a way that made them feel comfortable in the application process. So we opted to go test optional, and we were one of the, I think, earliest adopters of the test optional plan, at least among private universities of our size. About 20% of our applicant pool chooses this option. And so as far as students who are anxious, I would say first and foremost, they should remember that the most important factor in the admissions process is really their coursework in high school, right? It's the coursework, it's the academic rigor, and it's their performance. I would say also that for those that want to still pursue testing, that they need to continue to monitor testing policies within the schools of their choice. I understand that there are a number of colleges and universities that are opting, at least going into the next cycle, to be test optional. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that is something that students should continue to monitor. But having said that, I think that they should also continue to study and prepare. They should check the testing agency websites for updates regarding the status of any kind of scheduled tests. So to that extent, they should not stop their preparation. I know that one thing that students have been concerned about is probably the quality of the education that they're receiving. I know that they might have some concerns about the fact that it's online. How will colleges and universities look at that? There are probably some high schools that have opted to go with pass-fail grading. I think that we're all going to have to be flexible in the coming year to accommodate students, understanding that none of this is not their fault, it's not anyone's fault. We're just all going to have to work together to figure this out. But the important thing is that we all have to be flexible.
It would appear that the academic year 2019-2020 will be the one that carries an asterisk for years to come
Absolutely.
in terms of understanding what's transpired there. And another area of anxiety for kids right now is the college essay. Many rising seniors are beginning to think about how they will put their thoughts together in that essay. And they're also worried because there are the taboo topics. Will the coronavirus be a taboo topic this year?
I don't know if it'll be a taboo topic, but I suspect that it will be a very popular topic.
Yes. Okay.
um, and so, maybe in order to avoid having it be a taboo, perhaps it's going to be the student's individual take on maybe what they learned from this experience, or how they came out of this experience, how it impacted them in some way. But I do suspect that many of us will be reading COVID-19 essays this year in very much the same way that we have when there were other national crises and emergencies that affected us.
Well, and I need to back up just a second. I'm not a believer in taboo topics. I'm
Right.
that regardless of the topic, if a student takes advantage of an opportunity to reveal something about how that event or that situation was transformative in their lives, then they're going to be fine. So there is that worry, though, and the word on the street is that there are taboo topics, death, divorce, etc.
I know.
So I just hope that young people won't find that the COVID-19 is going to be such a taboo. So
I hope not. I mean, I have an interesting perspective on college essays. I mean, I really, really believe that the college essay it's another window into that student. It's the student's voice in the application, and it's their way of talking to the admissions committee about some aspect of their lives that they think is really important for us to know. And to your point, I would hope that students really do take that to heart, and not feel that there is a taboo topic or a non-taboo topic or a right answer or a wrong answer. The only wrong answer is the essay that is just inauthentic. Mm-hmm. And not in that student's voice. But otherwise, it's a really great window and an opportunity to learn something about a student that you wouldn't otherwise see just by looking at a transcript.
Well, and this is a good segue into a final thought I'd like to raise with you. If you had an random opportunity to encounter a 17-year-old, soon-to-be high school senior who is obviously overwhelmed by what's going on in the world around her and concerned about how this whole college process is going to work now, what advice would you have for that student?
I would say, first of all, breathe, focus on what is important in the now, and is getting through high school, focusing on your coursework, doing the best job that you can, thinking about what you want to have in a college experience. So, really sort of focusing on that process and thinking about in what kind of environment you think you may thrive. And just sort of taking it one day at a time and going through that process, and not not getting too far ahead. I would also suggest giving yourself some options in this process. Peter, you talked earlier about the possibility of many students maybe wanting to stay close to home. So I think even as you're looking ahead to the future, being practical and giving yourself some options that would allow you to have a safe place to land if something bad really did happen. But I think it's just really, it's focusing on getting through high school. It's not particularly glamorous advice, but I think it's, I tend to be a very practical person. And so I would just focus on that one foot in front of the other, one step at a time.
It's good advice though, Sharon, and I really appreciate that. This has been wonderful. I appreciate getting your insight into how things look from the American University perspective right now. I wish you and your team the very best as you work through the coming weeks and months to enroll your class and certainly get the next class, the class of 2025, on the right track toward the admission process. Is there a resource that you can point folks to as we sign off here, a website or a web page on your website that would be, in your opinion, a really helpful resource as young people and their parents are trying to sort things out on the college admission process?
I would encourage you to visit our website. It's just american.edu and go to our admissions page. There's a lot of good information about our admissions process and financial aid resources. I would say also that students have a very valuable resource in their school counselors, and to the extent that this resource is available to students, they should really, really tap into that. They have a wealth of knowledge. My other advice is that we do have a contact page on our website, and so if you are interested, we have staff that work with students based on the regions that they're coming from. Don't be afraid to reach out to us and to ask whatever questions you have. That's why we're here, and whether we are on campus or operating from parts unknown remotely, we are still all here for students, and we want students to know that and take advantage of that. And then to students, I would say that we know that this has been very difficult for them. We know that for the class of 2020, this is not the way that they had intended to end their senior year. This took us all by surprise, but they should know that we're here for them and that we care about them and that we want to do whatever we can do to be of assistance. And so they should not be afraid to reach out to us or to any resource that will be available to them. So we just wish them luck. We're thinking about them.
Well, that's wonderful, Sharon, and I appreciate your giving us the insight into the American University story as it looks right now, and hope the folks who listened in will take heart in the notion that there's some really good opportunities for you at American, but to take advantage of those opportunities to reach out and talk with the staff persons involved, and if you're an admitted student, there's some really great resources for you there as well. So thank you, Sharon, for again taking your time to be with us today, and thanks for all of the listeners for being with us. Until the next time, be safe and have a great day.
Thank you, Peter. Take care and good luck to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.